Okay, let's go underneath now and take a look at the exhaust from under here. It's still dirty under here. It's still just the way I found it. But I believe that all the exhaust on here is original. And we can talk about that for a minute. Now up there is where the downpipes go into the manifold. I'm going to zoom up. These should be brass nuts that are on a 3/8 fine thread stud sticking out. And it's very easy to break off an ear on the manifold trying to get those off. All right, now we come back down here. Not really sure why the one has a little darker hue of rust on it than the other. But here are the flexible sections in the downpipe. And you can see this one is split open, I believe. Yeah, there you go. That one's split open. And this one is a little suspect in the back. All right. And now here is some dripping and leaking from the gearbox. But we're going back now. These are the original factory clamps. And I believe that these are factory mufflers. Now, right here, you can see that these bolts, they look like they're coarse and a little different, and they don't really have much of a marking on the head. But they seem to have been in there forever, and the 66s would have had black downpipes and then an aluminized muffler section. So this looks about right. And then we've still got the factory clamps right here. This obviously was bare steel coming out the back. And we've got a little bit of a rust problem here, right in here. We might be able to fix that. We'll see. And then here are the intermediate pipes, is what we always called them. And then this one's got some rust. And then this is all of the original resonator bracketry. And you can see this here is kind of a safety clamp that a lot of cars don't have. And so if this rubber broke, it would fall down and land on here and wouldn't drag on the street. So that's what we've got under here. I think what I'm going to do to ease the removal is mark these here. I'm going to put a line down the center so I can line them up, and then I'm also going to run some tape around and give myself like an exact 6-inch distance, and then I can go ahead and use that to cut out this section that's flexible and weld in a new section of flexible material from another set of new downpipes. But as you can see, these downpipes look like they'd be okay if we clean them up. Might blast them and put some black paint on them like they were originally. But you can see they don't have any real kinks. They have very nice slow turns. They're almost mandrel bent. And so there's really no restriction, and they fit beautifully. So I think we're going to try to save those. I think we're going to try to save all of it. We'll see how that goes. Okay, mission accomplished. I've got this down. And I did get out the Sawzall, but as you can see, I did not have to cut it. It just broke there. What's interesting is this pipe is slid inside this flexible stuff pretty far, almost touching the other one. And then this flexible stuff's just welded across the two of them. Actually, it is not welded. Look at this. It's brazed. Never seen that on exhaust before. But again, I really do think this is original. There is just no knowledge about original exhaust. It just didn't last very long. And then back here, you can see where it looks like some critter has started to make a little home in there. So God only knows what's back there in the baffles of that muffler. So that'll be interesting. But the muffler looks okay on the top. That's just a little surface stuff, a little bump there, but looks all right. We've got that little problem here in the back. So again, we will clean this up and try to do as little damage and change to it as possible and get it back in operating order. But there it is. It's all original, and there's the original clamps and everything. Hey, this is Chuck from Monocoque Metalworks. It's time to go ahead and move forward on the exhaust. We've taken care of the manifolds and cleaned them up and gotten them back on the engine after cleaning out the exhaust ports. And now this is everything else that was on the car, and I have confirmed through my own satisfaction, books, calling people, that this is all original stuff. We've got the original downpipes. These are the original mufflers. These are the original intermediate pipes. And these 2, and then 3 and 4 exhaust clamps are also original. So I have a ton of new old stock and used exhaust pieces up there. There's not a lot of used, but there is a lot of NOS stuff. So I can kind of compare. The first thing I want to show you is look at the smoothness of the pipe. You can see a little bump right there where it's changing. But for the most part, it's almost mandrel bent. They're very smooth bends. Now what I see in all of the aftermarket stuff, and this is actually really old, they're all different. But see, this is a lot sharper of a bend. They've got that piece that they put in the bender there, so we've got a riser along here, kind of a kink. And so this is what I see in the later stuff. Now the next thing I want to show you is, I asked around about this a lot, the original exhaust pipes were painted black. And here is that original black coating. This is really the only part of it where it's left, is right here on this down part. And then once you get around the curve, there's just nothing left. But this does not look like paint to me. It almost looks like some type of enamel coating. It seems to be pretty well on there, what's left that's on there. And so that's the first thing. And then next, we've got these flex joints here. And what's really interesting there is that these are brazed on. You can see they're not welded, they are brazed at both sides. See, there's a spot where I scraped a little bit off. And if you look at these older NOS pieces, one of them is brazed and one of them is welded. But what I am going to do, I am going to try to salvage as much of this original exhaust as possible. I know that seems ridiculous, and several people have told me just put new stuff on and forget it. And I have new stuff that I can put on, but we're going to try this first, because I'm trying to strike a balance between originality, preservation, but also drivability. So these are the original muffler pack. Originally in the earlier cars in the 3/8, they were black, but they were also a straight through design. And then later on, they changed this to a baffled design inside, and apparently the baffling created more heat, so they started doing these in an aluminized coating. And that's why these look silver versus everything else that's rusted away black paint. Now, apparently the pipes going into them were not aluminized. I guess as part of the manufacturing process, they aluminized this, then they put the end pipes on and welded up these brackets and put them in this pack. Now, this one back here has got some problems down there. I think we showed you that before. So we're gonna clean that up. I'll probably cut out the rusted metal and then just carefully TIG weld in a little piece. And then these are the original intermediate pipes, and there's a ton of these upstairs too, but none of them look exactly like this. And again, even back here on the back of the muffler and here, we have these soft, slow sweeps and not these tight bends. Now over here is a collection of some aftermarket intermediate pipes. They're all different. There's a bunch more upstairs, but you can see the bends are always a bit tighter. Here's also, this is a aftermarket, I believe this is a Walker muffler pack. And what's funny is when I was in high school 30 years ago, we used to ship them out with this tape on there. I'm almost wondering if this is something that I wrapped up and shipped out a long time ago. And this just came in with a car or parts or who knows. It all just collects upstairs. But anyway, here is the aftermarket piece, and it's very, very close. But again, the bends are a little tighter. And then it's interesting, this seam here where it's wrapped around and then folded up on this seam. On this aftermarket pack, this seam is on the outside. But on the originals, they were being very particular about how they put things together, and the seam is on the inside. So it's nicer looking when you look at it from the side. All right, what else do I want to talk about? The car came without resonators. It's been a while that I've had the car now, so I've been doing a lot of research on various things, and I finally figured out what original resonators look like, and this is them. These 3 resonators here with the black painted around them and what looks like kind of a sloppy-ish weld here and here, these are original. They are called Burgess Burgess resonators. You can see there's actually a little bit of a difference in manufacturing. This one here, this is a matched pair off of a 65 coupe that had 17,000 miles on it. Now you can see someone had replaced the intermediate pipes. Here's a wrapper here from the aftermarket pieces. But they put the original resonators back on. Then this is another original from another car that came through here at some point, but it's paired up with an aftermarket. And you can see how the aftermarket is dipped in like that. Actually looks a little nicer. The resonators, this is the only set of originals I've been able to dig up in the past year. So we're going to go with these. Obviously, this one is a little more patina than I would like. But I think what we'll do is get that rust off of there with some Evapo rust, like in a rag. And then I'll go ahead and paint this section silver, which you won't see. And that'll protect this pair of originals, and we'll have all that originality there. All right, so over here, what we're going to do is we're going to take the original muffler clamps off, or exhaust clamps. These are some more that I've collected. I actually just noticed when I laid them out that this one is very similar, but not quite right. The real ones look like this. They kind of look like an Omega. See, so that one's not an original. These are originals. And all the ones I've seen so far have a bee's head bolt. Even though there was not much bees still going on the cars in '66, these are also bees bolts. So we'll pull them off. I think I'm going to sandblast the intermediate pipes. This one over here has some problems. It's rusted out. So I will repair just that section. I'll just TIG weld in a nice little piece. Then I'll blast these and paint them a satin black, which, judging by the little bit of paint that's on the bottom of the resonators and this coating over here, it looks like a satiny or like a semi-gloss was what it had. All right, now here, I'm going to take these flex joints, cut them out of here very carefully, because I have a lot of downpipes upstairs that are aftermarket. I might have 10, but these are the only 2 that have this flex joint that is the right length and the right size and width. It matches this. So we're going to grind all this braze off here, and we will sandblast these, and then we will braze those right back in, so that when we're done, these will be identical to the way they were, and we'll salvage these smooth bends here. All right, so let's get to work and start taking things apart. Well, there you go. In case you thought I was crazy, it's brazed. Don't expect to see that on an exhaust system, but that's how it is. Okay, well, bad news here. I don't think we can salvage the mufflers. I worked at this for a while yesterday, and I can't get anything apart, number one. And then I thought, well, maybe I just leave it all together. But then in trying to get it apart, the back of this muffler just completely came apart. Like, you know, this will slide right out of here. And then as I'm flipping them around and everything, I can hear there's a lot of stuff in there. So then eventually I hooked the opposite end of the shop back up to it and blew it out. And there is just tons of rust, went all over the place. And also you can see where it's kind of starting to split apart here at the seams a little bit. And I just think they've had it. And, I was really kind of bummed out about that. But then a friend of mine in the business, I called and talked to him. And he said, you know what? Even if you get them back together, weld up this back and get them going, the insides are all rusted out and they're probably going to blow apart anyway. So that is probably true. So what I think I'm going to do, I've been thinking about this all night. It's the next day now. I think I'm going to still go ahead and try to salvage the downpipes and the intermediate pipes. Just need to do a repair in this area here. And then I'll, at least for the sake of originality and some posterity, have some of it still in there. Here are these. You can see where I got the piece off, and it's rusted underneath there, but that all gets covered up. There's a little bit of that braze left. And these are actually pretty thick. They're thin. Okay, today is officially the day when I stop screwing around and get this exhaust problem solved. I have not touched the exhaust in over a year because I was so disappointed last year in everything I found out, and then I got really busy. So let's just recap. This is the original exhaust from the factory. These are the pipes that come down from the manifolds. All right, and then as you can see, I did the little flexible joint here was broken. So they were both broken. You can see a lot of the pipe goes into the joint. These were actually brazed on originally. So I cut that off and then I ground off that piece of flexible tubing. So then we come back to here. These are the original clamps. This stuff was either painted black or even porcelainized. All right. And you can see where the bends are very smooth. It's like a mandrel bent thing. They don't have any kinks. Whereas if you look at an aftermarket piece, see how you've got all these kinks in there from a more primitive bender. All right. Now these are sitting here because I am going to cut out this section of flex pipe here on these new old stock pieces and use it because it matches this. I've tried to buy it. This is the closest I could get. This is correct on the inner diameter, but the outer diameter isn't even close. It's about 1/4 of an inch to, look. So you can see this is the diameter of that. So I'm going to carefully cut these pieces out of this and use them to replace this. All right. So now moving back, you can see, and also this one here, the way it was made, this piece is cocked that way, so it's not even going to work. All right. So now moving back, here's your original exhaust clamps. This is the original muffler. This stuff was either black or like a porcelainized black, but the original muffler was aluminized. All right, and then we come back here. Here's our original clamps in the back. See, that's what they look like. I already took the bolts out last year, and they're in these little bags here. Got the original bolts from here too. These are the intermediate pipes, and then that's where it ended on our car. And I don't know if you can really see, but this one's got rust in the bottom. So I may try to repair that. I must have a dozen of these upstairs, brand new. None of them are exactly the same as this. They either got the slits in the wrong place, they've got those same rough bends. They're just not the same. So I think we can salvage this. So we're gonna get these off, sandblast them, and then just put some black exhaust paint on them. I didn't have resonators. So this is a pair of original factory resonators from a 66 coupe, almost the same time. Got these a couple years ago. As you can see, it's got replacement pipes here, but these are factory resonators. And they've got this little welded in cap back here. You've got this paint All right, this one's not looking too good, but I'll see what we can come up with there. And then these are the two mufflers I have to choose from. These I had on the shelf. These might have even come out of the place where I used to work based on the way that they're taped up on the ends. That's how we used to ship them. And then this one here, I bought out of California last year. I saw it available for sale and I grabbed it because it's kind of aluminized. It looks new old stock. It's been around for a long time. It's got the same size and shape here. But more importantly, if you look, see how this seam, the seam that puts the two mufflers together is on the inside and it points down? Well, here the seams are on the outside. But on this one, the seams are on the inside and one points down and one points up. I guess that's as close as I'm going to get on that. Now, the other thing about the mufflers is these are kind of a straight through design. I think there's some kind of packing in there. These originally were baffled. All right. I really wanted to save these because I was concerned about the sound difference, but they are no good. It's broken off here and I thought I could fix that, but last year I started trying to blow these out and the amount of stuff that came out of there was a nightmare. And we know that some of that got up into that exhaust port of the number 4 cylinder, so we had to clean that all out. So the mufflers are not salvageable. So I'm going to salvage the downpipes with a repaired section of flex tubing from those new old stock pieces back there that have the right flex on them. I'll use all the original clamps. I'm going to salvage the intermediate pipes here and patch up that piece and then paint those black. Got my original clamps there. I'm going to replace the mufflers with the closest thing I can get, which is these here. And I'm going to replace the resonators, which weren't there, with another pair of original resonators from a 66. And I'll need another pair of clamps for that. And my buddy Dan sent me a whole little can of clamps here. So we'll doctor up some of those. So let me go ahead and start cutting this stuff apart. That's where we stand now. Okay, that was not fun. That was a very loud and dirty pain. But anyway, I've got everything ready now. Here are my original downpipes here. And here's the back halves of those. These are the new old stock pieces of flex tubing that I cut out of those other head pipes. I still have to get these little pieces out. See how there's a piece in there? What's interesting is that was a matched pair, but one was welded. This one was welded in, and then this one was brazed like the originals. So what I will probably do is line this all up and just tack it in place with a little touch of a TIG welder, and then we'll pull them back down and braze them. Here's the back half. Here's our original clamps, and they are bagged and labeled, so they'll go right back where they came from. Here's our replacement muffler. It's a new old stock piece. It's the closest we could get. Here are the original clamps from the car for these two locations. Here are our original intermediate pipes. I did have to make a little extra slit down in there to get them off, and I will weld that up. I'll also make a little repair back here. Here are 4 original muffler clamps or exhaust clamps that I got from a friend, and 2 of them actually have the original bolts and nuts, which is nice. And then this is a pair of original factory chrome resonators for a Series 1 4.2. And then they need a little work here where they've been pinched. I've actually got one of those tools at home that you stick in here and you turn it with a ratchet and it kind of expands and cleans that up. So there's all my pieces. Now I need to do some sandblasting. I'll probably leave these as they are down to here. And that way I'll retain whatever this is a very interesting coating here. It's almost looks like a porcelain. So I'll retain that in the engine bay. And then this will be painted black as original. I'll either leave this as it is or probably paint it with silver exhaust paint. One thing that's, it shows you the difference between the aftermarket. These are not the right distance and they're bent and all that. So I'm probably gonna have to cut these off and weld them so that they are the right distance apart from each other and they stand up straight. See how that one's kind of out like that and this one's here, and they're not just bent. The distances aren't quite right. So I'll probably doctor that up and paint this silver. Originally it was an Alumacoat, and this actually has some Alumacoat on it. This will be repaired and sandblasted and painted with black exhaust paint. And then these will be polished up the best we can. I'll see what I can do here, maybe with some Evapo Rust, or I don't know, maybe I'll have to resort to some silver paint on the inside. But the outside that you see will be all right. So let's get to work on that. Okay, here's a midway shot. I've got the first new bracket on the front here, and you can see I left that tab long because when all four are on there, I'll kind of level it out and then I'll mark it and drill the holes so they're just right. So now I got to do this one here in the back. And you can see that the material here is thin. It's not welded on real well. Here I tried to reproduce the size and the location of the welds on the original as close as I could. So let's keep moving. Okay, next you can see what I had to do to straighten these out. I did go ahead and make slits there, and that worked out fine for this one. You can see it's all lined up now. This one over here, this bend was just out of whack. So in order to get it, flat that way, I had to make another cut here. So these I will leave, and they'll just be painted like that so that they match what's over here. But this one here, I'll go ahead and grind smooth. Okay, I just got the downpipes back from my friend Steve. He works for me sometimes part-time, and Steve taught welding at a community college for, I don't know, 20 or 25 years. So I had him do this brazing. I'm not the best brazer, but as you can see, he is fabulous. And this looks as good or better than the original, and it's also very much in the same style. So these are just back to absolute factory condition. I'm really happy about this. I tacked them with a MIG, then we started to braze it, and then once we had a few tacks of braze on, we ground the MIG tacks off and then brazed all the way around. So these have already been fitted up in there, and they are good to go. So these have been completely we've just reversed time back to the point where these were new. I'm really happy with how they turned out. Okay, here's the hardware for the exhaust, and I'll just walk you through this real quick. These are the original flanges for the head pipes or down pipes. And then there were washers under there. You can see the washers, they're steel. And then there were steel fine thread nuts, and I believe they were some type of special alloy, like tight lock nut. And so that's what was on there, not brass. They were steel. These are the bolts that were holding the muffler on. Now, these are quite a mystery because they are coarse thread. They don't have any head marking on them. And they appeared to be the originals. None of this stuff had ever been apart. There weren't any extra marks or tool marks on the bolts or anything. But they just don't, they seem to be kind of out of place. But anyway, that's what was on there. That's going to go back on there. Because the minute I replace them with some original fine thread Rubery Owen, I'll find out that for a week they were using these or something. Now here are the original exhaust clamps. These are the two for the front. This one got really mangled up getting it off, so you can see I've worked on that one a little bit. Otherwise, I've just cleaned them up with some simple green and a toothbrush. These are for the front of the muffler. These are for the rear of the muffler. And I just realized just now that the ones for the front of the muffler are 1 7/8. The ones for the rear of the muffler are 1 3/4. And then we didn't have resonators on the car. This is a pair of originals that I got from a friend. And he actually gave me 4 of them. I picked out the best 2 that had bolts in them. But one on the right here that's rusty is 1 3/4, and the one on the left that was sandblasted is 1 7/8. So I'm going to have to go back to the little can that he sent me and find another 1 7/8, because apparently that is what you need for the resonators, is 1 7/8. These all have a GKN bolt on them. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's what they had. And as you can see, these back here, like this one is another original, and it appears to be like a silver CAD bolt maybe. But all of these here, it appears that the clamps and the bolt and the washers were all like a black or dark gray anodized finish. And then only the nut had a silver CAD finish. See that? So it's tough to zoom in. But there you go. And then these are the 2 little bolts. They are 1/4 fine thread that held the resonator straps together. Not resonator straps, you know, the intermediate pipes that go back to the resonators. Those are the little bolts that held them together. And they are a black anodized. And then they have like a silver CAD lock nut. And then finally, this is an original resonator tie plate that came off an old exhaust that was in the shop, and I need to get some bolts for that. I'm going to need 2 1/4 fine thread bolts and a 5/16 fine thread. So there you go. There's all the hardware. Now, this stuff is all going to stay as it is. So are these little bolts here. The clamps, they're a mess, and some are bare, and so I'm going to spray these with the black exhaust paint, but right over what you see here, so that, you know, the original stuff is right there. So anyway, there you go. Okay, it's time to see if I can clean these up. I think this one here will clean up really nice. And this one here, not so nice, but like I said before, the bad part is up top and inside. So there you go. It looks like something that's been sitting around since 1966. So let's clean those up. Okay, here's the completed exhaust system installed. Let's see if we can get up there. There's those original nuts and little washers on there. All right, and these are the original downpipes. Now here's where we have replaced these flex sections, and we brazed that on. And then you can see I painted this with actually just a Rust-Oleum black barbecue paint that seemed to be well thought of on the internet, and I didn't want something too fancy. I'd kind of like it to burn off a little bit and burn in. Here's my original exhaust clamps. They are in the exact same position that they were to begin with. This is our new old stock muffler, and remember we completely revamped this with these new straps. These are those mysterious little no-name coarse bolts. That's what was on there. I put them right back in there. You can see that this original hanger is separating a little bit. Once things get going, I might have to replace some things like that. See, that one's separating a little bit too. All right, I'm coming back here. These are our, what we used to call the intermediate pipes. I've got the same original clamps that were on the car. They're in the same position again. These are actually just a little bit loose because I may have to drop the rear to get those rear brakes going. So I have not tightened these on real tight yet because I don't want to crimp the tubes. All right, but that's that. And then coming all the way to the back, let me just kind of loop around here. These are our original resonators. They're not in the best shape, but they're factory originals. And then I have, you can't really see, but these 3 bolts are Rubery Owen bolts. So I dug them up, so they're just right. And then that's an original nut. And then the 2 on the sides have some new nuts on them. But they are nylon lock nuts, just like original. And I'll probably dig around and find some decent original nylon lock nuts eventually. So there is the exhaust. It was a lot of work. I could have just put a new exhaust on here in a few hours. Instead, it took me, I don't even want to say how long. I mean, I started on it a year ago and then I just bailed. But there it is. I've salvaged as much of the original exhaust as I possibly could. And the pieces that I've had to replace, like the muffler and these flex pieces, I've made them as correct as I possibly could. So I'm pretty happy with how this all turned out. This new paint is a little much for the patina of this car, but I'm hoping that kind of burns in. Thanks for watching.